So where we are once again back to the Spirit's book, and we are going to start today. Last week we studied spirit and matter, and today we are going to talk about properties of matter. So we discussed a little bit about the universal fluid, the idea that we had three elements, so to say, in the universe, which is the creator, the spirits or the spiritual principle, and the universal fluid, from where derives everything else that we call matter, that we call other names, energy. They all derive from the universal fluid. So the universal fluid go through transformations. The spirit evolves, the spiritual principle then becomes the spirit and continues to evolve towards perfection and towards working in direct connection with the creator, with God. But matter does not have intelligence. Matter that comes from the universal fluid or the universal fluid is subject to all transformations in everything that is not the spirit and it's not the creator, comes from the universal fluid or the cosmic fluid. Okay, so now let's go over properties of matter. Philip, you read for us?
Certainly. But there's nothing on the screen. Oh, wait a minute.
There is on the screen.
I did something. Okay, properties of matter. Number 29. Is ponderability an essential attribute of matter? Yes, for matter as you understand it, but not matter that is considered the universal fluid. The ethereal and subtle matter forming this fluid cannot be measured by you, and yet it is the source of your matter that can be weighed. Gravity is a relative property. Beyond the realm of gravitational pull between planets and stars, there is no such thing as weight, just as there is neither up nor down. Okay.
So the first thing important to remember, this is 1857, right? A lot of things that science knows today, we know through science, was not known at the time. So the spirits were limited in what they could tell us. They advanced some information that was going to be later discovered by science, but there wasn't even words to describe some of the things that we later learned, right? They couldn't talk about cellular phones if there were not even phones at that time. So when we talked about matter at that time, we knew matter as something tangible. So that's why Kardec asks if ponderability an essential attribute of matter, and the spirits, they immediately answer us that for matter as you understand, but not matter that is considered the universal fluid, meaning that there is something else beyond the matter that we knew at that time, the tangible matter, the ethereal and subtle matter that comes also from the universal fluid that cannot be measured by you. Now we have some ability to measure some of this ethereal and subtle matter, but we cannot measure thought, for instance. But the source of your matter that can be weighted, that's what they say. And then Kardec, remember the comment down, it's not between quotes, is from Kardec. He talks about gravity, and he brings the idea that there is no gravity between the planets and stars, and no such thing as weight. and neither up or down, which was something also that was relatively known at that time and not that much. So I asked Luis today to help me on what we knew at that time compared to what we know today, because it's much more on his of his knowledge of what science knows today. We miss our friend Julio here today also, right? Because he would be also bringing what science knows these days. So Luis, feel free to comment at any time that you have something to add, okay? Comments, questions here? No? Okay. Next one, Philip.
Number 30. Is matter composed of one or several elements? One single primordial element. The bodies that you see as simple are not truly elements, but transformations of the primordial matter.
So that's, again, we go back to the concept of the universal fluid. One single primordial element, the cosmic fluid or the universal fluid. The bodies that you see as simple are not truly elements, but transformations of the primordial matter. Everything is a transformation of the universal fluid, okay? This is a very important concept. Everything that is, again, not the spirit, not God, but everything that is what we call matter and energy and dark matter and everything else derives from one single primordial element, the universal fluid, okay?
That's absolutely not obvious. Not even today, but in 18 something, that's a very advanced step, the combination of the two things. Question 30 talks about one single primordial element. If you said something like that, like 40, 50 years ago, when I was studying in US, you would, not 40, okay, it would be, absolute nonsense. But in recent years, that's one of the most promising theories, that everything that surrounds us is composed of strings. The elements of what we call the standard model that has protons and neutrons and antiprotons, and they are all made of strings. And this string is a funny word. Physicists like to use funny words for things, like quarks that have charm and whatever. But don't be picky about the words. And what's neat, I found fantastic, is that strings are called strings because, a funny guy that studies physics notes a similarity between the equation and the equation of a vibrating string. So he called it strings. And the funny thing is that the only way this set of equations work and explain the forces and the matter, I've said this in another discussion, but I'm going to repeat it here, is if you use either 11 or 13 dimensions, meaning the theory behind the strings brings with it the concept that there are other physical dimensions. These are not imaginary dimensions, they are physical dimensions that for some reason we do not see, we do not reach. And this would explain the ethereal and subtle matter that Kardec talks about, that the spirits talk about in question 29. So if you read this, you're talking about fairly recent theories and concepts. It's fantastic how 150 years ago, before they had discovered the electron, before, Rutherford had the model of the atom with a nucleus and an electron outside of it, Kardec was saying things like that. It's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. It's
So,
fascinating.
Fascinating. Good.
Yeah.
uh,
Go ahead, Elmo.
okay, so Luis, is it fair to say that 150 years ago, when you read those two questions and we take that in, there would be what you could call blind faith. But today it's no longer. Today you can actually base those answers in some scientific evidence.
Yes, it would be fair, very close to scientific evidence, more similar to matching a theory, not yet scientific evidence, but very close to modern theories. And if you were living in the 1860s, suppose you were Rutherford and you read this, it would be a very high leap of imagination at the time to believe that something as this, was possible, would be definitely a leap of faith at the time.
Thanks.
Interesting. Any questions, comments?
Yes, one question.
Sure.
Do we have any proof of other physical dimensions?
If you mean our current scientific experiments, I would say no. We have indications. Some of the indications are dark matter and dark forces, but no actual scientific experiment that has shown that those dimensions exist.
One more question, if you can give a simple answer. When we talk of dark elements or dark matter, do we have any description of those in any way?
No, the concept of dark matter came about. I was going to do a class about it, but I never came, down to actually do it. Because scientists calculating mass and forces along the whole of the universe, they found that a lot of matter and forces were missing. With only the things we could see, the orbits would be all wrong. So it's a strong indication, but nobody came out with this and said, hey, this is a loose dimension. Differently from antiprotons, for instance, that they have been created and shown, as well as other primordial, not primordial, it's not a good word, basic, what's the word in English? Oh boy, basic particles of the standard model that do not exist in our nature, let's say, but they were created in large accelerators where they can, generate high amounts of energy. And so actually show them there. This has not happened yet, unfortunately, about this hidden or regarding those hidden dimensions, the hidden matter and the hidden forces. They are just theories.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Thanks, Luis. Okay.
31.
Yes.
From where do the different properties of matter originate? They originate from changes undergone by elementary molecules as a result of their union and under certain conditions.
Okay, so here we're talking about properties of matter, right? When we talk about properties of matter, we have physical properties and chemical properties nowadays. The states of matter, just to give you an illustration, we have solid, liquid, and gas, which is something that was known at the time, but today we also have plasma, which is a hot ionized gas consisting of charged ions and negatively charged electrons. And then you have the chemical properties, again, of matter. This is all science today, right? And so there are some modern states of matter, right? That I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I'll just name some so you see how much science is evolving. You have the supercritical fluid, you have the degenerate matter, the Bose-Einstein condensate, the superconductivity, superfluid, the quantum spin liquid, the dropleton, the time crystals, and so on and so forth. And then you have the very high energy states, which is the quark gluon plasma, okay? Just to give you an idea of where science is today. And at that time that the spirits answered that question, we knew about molecules. We didn't even know about atoms. Atoms were not existent, not known at that time, not non-existent. Of course, they always existed, but not known at that time. So the spirits had to talk about molecules because that's the word that they knew from the time. And they talk about the different properties of matter, the change in the elementary molecules. And for us, the simple example that everybody knows is water, right? You have the same matter in a sense, water, right? There can be the solid, the liquid, and the gas state, right? It's just a change of temperature. Energy and temperature is what is going to change matter. So that's basically the properties of matter as we know today, and what Kardec mentioned at that time. Okay, any questions, comments here? Okay, it's complex, I know, but we need to bring a little bit of what's known today, because it gives some an interesting color to what the spirits were talking to us 150 years ago. Yes, Luis.
Yeah, no, allow me, because it's interesting again to understand this leap of faith. The concept of elements exists since the Greeks, since Plato. And the combination of elements to become other substances is something that's also known for centuries, if not millennia. And people at the time knew that things were different. There were different things. And to say that they are only the same thing is such a tremendous concept that, guys probably would read this and think, "Whoa, boy, what is he trying to tell me here?"
Yeah, you study this chapter, and because we normally study this the Spirit's book today, and we think about our knowledge. We relate to our knowledge of today. It's the obvious thing, but we have to go back and understand at the time it was written. The same thing applies to some books of André Luiz. A lot of information that André Luiz brought to us in the 40s, 50s, it's something that science haven't even got close to discover at that time, and it was proven later. The book's Evolution into Worlds and Mechanisms of Mediumship are two examples. but also some information about the pineal gland, about other things that were brought by André Luiz, was also something that was discovered much later. So you see that the spirits, they give us some ideas of what's ahead for us. They're not going to do our work for us, as we mentioned many times. But as you study here, it's very important for us always to remember that the knowledge at that time and how much forward thinking was the Spirit's book at that time.
Yeah, and reason with me. Guys at the time have known for some time about things like a powder that would mix, azoto and sulfur with carbon, with something else that I don't remember, and you would make something that explodes. Three things different that make something that explodes. You need the three things. How can the spirits, tell me that they are the same thing? Kardec asked, are they solely the result of modifications of the same basic substance?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, yeah. Oh, good. Important. All right. So next one, Philip, which is a good one also.
32. According to this interpretation, are flavors, odors, colors, sounds, and the toxic or beneficial qualities of bodies solely the result of modifications of the same basic substance? Precisely. These senses only exist according to the design of the organs intended to perceive them. This principle is demonstrated by the fact that everyone does not perceive the qualities of material items in the same manner. While something may appear to taste good to one person, it may be horrible to another. What appears blue to one person appears red to another. That which is poisonous for some is harmless or even healthy for others.
Okay, so we talk a lot about the answers from the spirits, but to get a good answer, you need a good question, and we sometimes forget the importance of Kardec's question. So when the spirits tells us that everything originates from this primordial matter, Kardec brings a question that is really very, very interesting here, because it goes way beyond the knowledge at that time. He brings the idea of flavors, odors, colors, sounds, and the toxic or beneficial qualities of bodies are only the result of modifications of the same basic substance. So he's saying, you're telling me that the flavors of the food are coming from different from the same basic substance, and the spirits answer in one word: precisely. No space for discussions here. And then they say the senses only exist according to the design of the organs. And then Kardec complements, right? That the principle is demonstrated that everyone sees and feels different things, right? Even when we talk about colors, right? You remember that those the famous dress that people see different colors for the same dress that was a success a couple of years ago on the internet, right? Everybody talking about the dress. I don't remember what colors people would see the dresses. So, and sounds. Why some music pleases some people ears and not others, and vice versa, and so on and so forth. And also when he talks about the toxic or beneficial qualities of the bodies, Kardec is going to mention later here water, right? That you just changing one element from H2O to H2O2, it becomes a completely different element that is toxic to some people, right? So everything originating from one basic substance, the cosmic fluid. Okay. Any questions, comments here? No. Okay. So
30. Can the same elementary matter undergo all possible changes and acquire all properties? Yes. And it is this fact that is implied in the saying, everything is in everything.
okay, just read what Kardec wrote here in the bottom.
This principle explains the phenomenon known by all magnetizers and that consists in giving radically different properties to any substance, such as a specific taste to water, and even the active qualities of other substances. Since there is only one primordial element and the properties of different bodies are only variations of this element, the most inoffensive substance has the same foundation as the most noxious. Water, which is 1 part oxygen and 2 parts hydrogen, becomes corrosive when someone doubles the proportion of oxygen. A similar transformation may occur by the magnetic action directed by the will. Allan Kardec.
Yes, now read this, continue the question 33. Oxygen, hydrogen.
Nitrogen, carbon, and all the other masses that we see as elements are merely variations of one primordial substance. As we have found it impossible to arrive at this elemental matter other than as an intellectual deduction, they appear to be elementary. We may therefore continue to regard them as such for now. Subsection A. This theory appears to support the opinion of those who acknowledge only 2 essential properties in matter, force and movement, and who regard all other properties of matter as purely secondary effects, varying according to the intensity of the force and direction of movement. This opinion is exact. We must also add according to molecular arrangement, for instance, in an opaque body that may become transparent and vice versa. Is
Okay,
there?
thanks. No, thanks, Philip. So again, the same elementary matter undergo all possible changes and acquire all properties. And the spirits say yes, and it is this fact that is implying saying that everything is in everything, that everything derives from the primordial matter, from the universal fluid, right? And then the commentary from Kardec, it's important to understand that this is commentary from Kardec when he talks about oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen. I don't know how many chemical elements they had in the middle of the 19th century. I know today we keep adding more and more elements. All of them, a lot of them created, artificially created by humans, right? But in the 19th century, the elements we had was, I think we went until, Luis, you know where
80 something, probably
80
70.
something, right? Yeah.
There was much
So-
confusion between what was a substance and what was an element, because a substance is something that's made out of elements, and they weren't able to separate them clearly at the time.
Yeah. So what Kardec is talking here is that it's impossible at that time to arrive at this elemental matter. As Luis said, we are still trying to get there, but it is an intellectual deduction. So our basic elements are still, you know, hydrogen, oxygen, and all the others, right? And then Kardec continues asking the spirits. This theory supports the idea that there are two essential properties of matter. There are force and movement. And the spirits say that that's exact. And also add that according to molecular arrangement, you can change something into something else. An opaque body can become transparent and vice versa. One thing that is important for us, and that's why I asked Philip to read the comment, is that Kardec talks here, and remember, Kardec before Spiritism studied and very profoundly magnetism with Mesmer, and learn how the properties and how magnetizers would work including in healing, and we know nowadays, for specifically talking about water, right? We all know the experiment of that Japanese scientist that show the different modifications of the crystals of water according to the energies around the water. And then Kardec talks here, that's how we explain also the healing power of the passes and the healing power of mediums of healing effects, right? Everything comes from this modification of substances in the air and the modification of the energy in the patient receiving the treatment, right? I'm sure Elmo can add something here, but it's important that Kardec is already bringing that the idea that the changes in matter is what can allow these magnetic and spiritual treatments to take place. Okay, so now I'm going to open for Luis and Elmo.
No, I have nothing to add here.
Actually, I do. I think there are a couple of things I'd like to mention. First of all, I always make a point in my classes that what the spiritists call magnetism is not the same thing as you have in a refrigerator magnet, okay? Those are different things. We're just using the word magnetism here to represent something else. So it's important that we not confuse those things. And the other thing is, what is, between double, how do you say that? Double
Esoteric?
Double sharp.
No,
double
what?
No. The phrase that's between aspas.
Oh, between quotes.
Yeah.
Quotation.
That's
Quotation.
a quote.
Mark.
Yeah, no, that's a quotation in English. Anyway, essentially, what the spirits are actually saying, not the comments from Kardec, they're extremely precise statements. And the last one is great because what he's talking about here is crystalline structure. And the spirit saying that, the molecular arrangement of the matter, its crystalline structure, defines if a body, among other things, may be opaque or transparent. This is fantastic for 1860s. I mean, you cannot understand crystalline structure before you understand atoms and the forces between atoms. And that came, in 1905. So this is definitely a leap of knowledge at the time. They knew crystals, but they did not know, what a crystal was, and that carbon was different from diamond because the crystalline structure was different. Graphite and diamond. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Thank you, Luis.
If I talk too much, just interrupt me.
No, no, that's why, exactly why I asked you to help me today, because I knew you could bring some. I think it's very important to separate what we knew at that time and what the spirits are telling us. How much is it's an advancement, because it helps us feel more comfortable studying spiritism as a whole, right? Because we know that the spirits are bringing things that are real. They're not bringing things that that are there are no fake news there. Let's say, of course, again, Kardec always said that if science discovers something that contradicts what the teachings of the spirits or spiritism, we stay with science, and we have no problem in that. But we need to always be comparing to what's the progress of science and what we are studying spiritism in the mid 19th century. So there is a question here. Can I think that everything is the result of a supersede basic element? I don't know if I understood the question. Did you understand the question, Luis?
It's not shown here. It was probably privately sent to you.
Yeah, it was private. Can I think that everything is the result of a supersede basic element?
No, you could. That's incorrect. You should not call it element. We can say that everything and every force in our universe seems to be, and there's a very well-founded theory today, seems to be originating from the same thing. But this thing is not an element. This thing, for lack of a better name, we are calling strings. But we could call them, pencils, or we could call them flowers. But the guy who created the theory called it string. But it's not an element. It is a primordial thing.
Okay.
Allow me to say something about what you just said. I think that's so important for us to look in detail those things, because I know those things are boring for some people. But I always say that a serious spirits or spiritists, serious spiritists such as us, and we believe all of us are serious spiritists, we understand, and we understand because we reason, we read, we understand what's told us, we reason, and as a result, we believe. So spiritism is the opposite of blind faith. Spiritist is, I lost the word in English
Rational
again.
faith. Rational.
Yeah, it's a faith based on reason. And all those things that we get from the revelations of the elevated spirits, such as in the codification, and all those things we get in contact in our spiritual meetings, they are, like experiments, if I might say so. All those things allow us to understand, to reason, and to build our knowledge of the universe based on what we experience and what we read. That's probably the most differentiating element, in my opinion, that Spiritism has from other blind faith religions.
Yeah, I agree. Paco, if you're trying to say anything, you're mute.
Can I? Let me see if I don't
Now,
know.
now it's okay. Now I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Can I say that everything, absolutely everything that I see, okay, and feel through any sensation is actually from that primordial thing called cosmic fluid, except for the spirit?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Simply yes.
Ah,
Simply yes.
yes.
Or as the spirits answered before, precisely.
Everything. It could be a transformation, it could be an exchange, it should be a chemical reaction, but everything comes from that thing called cosmic fluid, period.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's difficult. It's difficult to grasp, you know.
Yeah. No, it is. It is not easy, but it's important to understand the concepts. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
the last question here on properties of matter.
34. Do molecules have a definite form? Of course, they have a form, but it cannot be assessed by you. A, is this form constant or variable? Constant for primordial elementary molecules, but variable for secondary molecules that are only aggregations of the primary ones. What you call a molecule is very far from being an elementary molecule.
Okay. So here also the spirits have to run in circles to try to explain to us without the words and the knowledge that we had at that time. So remember, molecules at that time was the smallest thing we knew, right? So Kardec asks if the molecules have a definite form, and the spirits say yes, they do, but you cannot assess yet. And then Kardec asks if this form is constant or variable, and the answer is constant from the elementary molecules, meaning what comes from the universal fluid is constant in form, which is probably not the best word also, because I don't think they have what they have is exactly a form. But I said any combination for secondary molecules are variable. And then they finish telling us what you call molecule is very far from being an elementary molecule, saying we are talking about things that giving names to things that are not exactly what you think they are. So I think in this question, they give us what we could get at that time with the words we got at that time. And today we have a much more knowledge. But again, as we are still evolving, I'm sure that 150 years from today, we will look back and ask ourselves, how could we study this with our lack of knowledge of today? Because we are always evolving. But I was talking to Luis before the class, and I asked what year we discovered the atoms, and he told me around 1905, I think, 1905. So before that was molecule, right? Luis, with you.
No, that's correct. Rutherford developed the most basic atom model in 1905, a model that had only a nucleus and an electron flowing around it. And actually, anyway, I was going to tell you how he discovered it, but this has nothing to do with spiritism. But I think your point on how difficult it must have been so frustrating for the spirit trying to explain those things to Kardec and for Kardec to try to understand. Imagine today, imagine that Philip walks in a tribe in the Amazon that has not seen any human being, any civilized human being. He has his satellite phone with him there, or his satellite smartphone. How can he explain what is a smartphone? The people he's talking to, they have no words, no concepts for that thing. Not even a phone. Let's talk about smartphones with GPSs and cameras. So it must have been so frustrating for the spirits. And just to say that it's probably the same today. We are probably interacting or not us, because the work we do, we interact with very primitive spirits, but I'm sure there are mediums today that are interacting with spirits that know so much more than we know today, and maybe the same difficulty still happens.
Yeah, actually, there was a question that asked if there are people asking the spirits the same questions under the light of what our science knows now. Yes, we have some people that are asking spirits, and we have all the, all the André Luiz collection is a report from the spiritual world of things that were not reported at the time of Kardec. So what Emmanuel and André Luiz brings to us, and what Manuel Filomeno de Miranda is bringing through the psychography of Divaldo Franco today, also, he brings a lot of information about the spirit world that was not given before. But in terms of groundbreaking theories that the spirits brought to us at the time of Kardec, and with André Luiz, with Chico Xavier, I don't know if there is anything being done today that is up to what was happening at that time. I'm not sure. Elmo, you don't know anything. You haven't heard anything else, right?
No, we know that there are some medium scientists, so to say, having contact with spirits who are in the scientific field, and they are exchanging informations. But one thing that they're not, at least as much as you know, they're not going to do our work for us, right? They're not going to reveal things that are not absolutely necessary for us. All the scientific discovery and understanding has to come from us in the physical world. But yeah, I know there is some studies being done with mediums having conference, so to say, with spirits with scientific matter.
Thanks.
And João, we must
Yes.
not, talk only about scientific developments. They are also more advanced morally than we are. And I'm sure it's very difficult for them to express some moral concepts to us because we haven't got there. You know about the spiritualism in the United States. To treat equally man and woman is something fairly recent. Spirits were talking about us reincarnating as man or woman, much before we as a society accepted that as normal. And I'm pretty sure there are similar things happening now. I mean, we have a lot to evolve morally.
Yes. That's why it's a world of trials and atonements, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So we have a couple of questions on universal space to finish this chapter. Let's go, Philip.
35. Is universal space infinite or limited? Infinite. Assume for a moment that there are boundaries. What would be beyond them? This perplexes your reason, which tells you that it cannot be otherwise. The same is true with regard to infinity in all things. The idea of infinity cannot be grasped in your narrow world. If we imagine a limit to space, no matter how far away this limit may be, reason dictates that there must always be something beyond it until we arrive at the idea of infinity, because this something, even if only an absolute void, would still be space.
Read the next one. The last one.
Does an absolute void exist anywhere in the universe? No. What appears to be a void to you is occupied by matter that your senses and instruments are incapable of detecting.
Okay, so here in this last item of this chapter, Kardec asks the spirits about the universe, right? Remember, we knew very limited, we had very limited knowledge of the universe. We knew our solar system and our own galaxy, and that was pretty much it. The spirits tells us here that universal space is infinite. And then the logical answer, right? If we think that there is an end to the universal space, immediately we think, how can be an end? And if, you know, because we cannot imagine something that ends and there is nothing beyond. Well, this goes against our reason. So which tells us that it has to be infinite. Of course, nowadays, Luis will tell us the number of galaxies that we know. I already forgot the trillions or billions or trillions or whatever, but we know today that the universe is pretty much infinite as much as we know. Or I don't know if science already reached that conclusion, but I think we are not very far from there. And then it's interesting that Kardec, in his explanation, he talks that if we imagine a limit to space, reason always tells us that there is something beyond. And then he says, even if it's only an absolute void, there will still be space. And immediately he asks, does an absolute void exist? And the spirits goes directly. Quick answer, no. What appears to be a void to you is occupied by matter that your senses and instruments are incapable of detecting. Again, very forward thinking in the 1857, talking that everything is occupied by matter and there is no void. That's very interesting. Luis, to you now.
Yeah, I think there are two interesting comments here. First, question 36, and in French it's great because the answer is non. Rien n'est vide. There's no nothing, there's no vazio, there's no empty.
Emptiness.
Emptiness. It's fantastic. And this is current physics. Today there's something called quantum. Oh, I had the word here in my mind and it left. Well, it will come back. Anyway, quantum perturbation, no. When I start to think in English and go back to Portuguese, it's a confusion. Anyway, today we know that doesn't exist emptiness because in empty space, the quantum fluctuations, is the name. You can Google it. There's something called quantum fluctuation that out of nothing, matter appears with zero energy and it recombines again. So this is an absolute current statement. And regarding the former statement, one could argue superficially that, by the way, Johnny, is 3 trillion times 200 to 400 billion stars in the known universe. So it's a fairly large number. But anyway, one could argue at first glance, well, this is not correct because we know that we are part of a bounded universe. So the universe is not infinite. But if you think twice, there's another argument you can make that's very strong and agrees with that. We live in an ever-expanding universe. The universe that we live in is bounded, but it's expanding. And it's expanding at an increasing rate as time flows. So if you imagine time as part of our universe, and we have to, we can consider that it is infinite because in infinite time, the universe will be infinitely large. Did you get it?
I did. I hope everyone did. Okay. Anyone? Comments, questions here? We're not going to go forward here because now we change. We are going to creation, which is chapter 3. This was chapter 2. And now we're moving to chapter 3, which is creation. We're going to talk about God and the creation of the worlds, living beings, earth, Adam, you know, the diversity of human race, and the biblical account of the creation and the existence of multiple worlds. Again, at the time, we barely were convinced that our world was inhabited. Now we're going to, and the spirits are bringing the concept of multiple worlds, existence and inhabited. But that's for next week.
One question. I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Paco.
I don't know. It's like it's the concept of infinite. Was it very difficult to understand in the 1850s? Because
Concept?
The concept of infinite.
The concept of infinite, even now, is very complex, very difficult.
Yeah.
To conceptualize the universe as infinite, I do not find it complex. I can't. I don't know what kind of sense it is. So that's my point. That it's this complex issue, but in terms of conceptualizing it, I guess it's like common sense, isn't it?
Actually,
I simplify this too much.
Actually, infinities are a huge problem, not only conceptually, but mathematically. Most modern theory in physics have a huge problem dealing with infinities. They try to place infinities on top and bottom of a quotient so that they can cancel each other. So currently it's very, very tricky to deal with infinities in mathematics, in high level analytical mathematics. So infinity stuff, my friend, no way around it.
Yeah, I think I understand Paco's what Paco is saying. It's the concept of infinity and infinite is extremely complex and difficult, but to conceptualize the universe being infinite, whatever this infinite being is, it's easy, in his opinion, to conceptualize. Is that what you're saying, Paco?
Yeah, yes, exactly. But then it's like, am I simplifying this too much? I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
No, it's okay.
But Paco, it's not that easy. Do you believe that the universe began?
It's complicated, but I can definitely conceptualize it in terms of the universe being infinite.
But let me ask,
Really
do you believe
Huh?
do you believe that the universe began in a Big Bang?
According to a scientific theory, it was an implosion. Yes, they say that it's a big. Yeah.
If it began as an explosion, how can it be infinite if it was an explosion that's still expanding? So it's a difficult concept.
What was before the explosion, right?
No, actually, if it's an explosion, it's expanding. So it's not infinite because there's a boundary somewhere.
Luis, is that a factual a thing or is it a theory? That's not a fact.
It's very, very close to a fact. There is an image made by a satellite that shows a map of the primordial X-ray emissions of the Big Bang. I've used it in a number of spiritist classes, actually.
No, I know. I usually use the Big Bang, 13.7 billion years, to illustrate how our life is an instant. Remember, Joe, how I love that passage from the Big Book, from the Spirit Book?
Because the thing is, the radiation that originated in the Big Bang is still around us. Remember when you had analog TV and you had that chuvisco, I don't know how to say that in English. And when you did not...
The freezing or frizzle, I don't know. I don't know how to say that in English. Yeah, I know.
When you tune in a channel, the old television, you tuned in the channel where there was no transmission, you would see like a flicker of white and black.
What was that? What's that called in English, Philip?
No.
White noise.
No, yeah.
Grating, yeah, like grating.
1/3 of that is radiation from the Big Bang that's still around us.
Oh.
So yes, there was a Big Bang. That's a fact, my friend. I don't think we can sneak out this one.
Daniela just wrote in the comment there that the Museum of Natural History has an amazing program, tours about this subject, and now everything is online. So if anyone is more curious about it, you can go online on the Museum of Natural History to research about it.
Thanks,
you,
Daniela. Good hint.
I'm going to look for it. Yeah, I'm going to look for it definitely. All right. I hope you all enjoyed the discussions today. I know it's a lot of difficult information, but it's important basic concepts of Spiritism that builds our knowledge and our understanding about ourselves and the spiritual world. So this Saturday, we have a very interesting lecture on the United States Spiritist Federation lectures with Vicente Pessoa. He's a doctor, he's an infectious disease physician, and the vice president of the Spiritist Medical Association of Goiânia, which is the capital of one of the states in Brazil. And he's going to talk about the cures of Jesus, a medical spiritist hypothesis. So he's going to talk about the cures of Jesus according to a doctor with a spiritist knowledge. I actually have his presentation he sent to me. And it's very interesting. If you are interested in a subject, I highly recommend that you watch it either live or later, if you cannot watch live, because they all are kept in our YouTube page. All these United States Spiritist Federation lectures. Okay. This Sunday. Sorry, we're gonna
do it in English.
Yeah, it's in English. Yes. All the talks are in English. Yes.
I know, but he is speaking English or simultaneous translation?
No, in English. He speaks. He studied here, so he speaks a good English. He gave a lecture. He was one of the first ones to give the lectures on the 1 year ago when the United States Spiritist Federation started this program, and he speaks a pretty decent English. I don't know if any of you remember him, but he was. I think he was the first, second, or third one to give the lecture on April last year. So a couple of things more. Remember, especially those that are not in the US, we have a time change this weekend. So if you are not here, there is 1 hour difference. We're going 1 hour forward. So for you guys in Brazil, you have to come 1 hour, 1 hour later for you. Well, it's actually 1 hour before for you, right? So Sunday is 12 p.m. for you guys in Brazil. 11 a.m. for us here. This Sunday we'll be studying the Gospel according to Spiritism. It's the second Sunday of the month. Okay. I think that's it. Carol, we'll do our final prayer.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, John, Elmo, and Luis. Take a deep breath. Infinite Creator, First Cause, we are grateful to be together this evening for the study of the Spirit's book. We've had some interesting studies, but this goes deeper and deeper into properties of matter and universal space. We are grateful to be together for this study, that we can pursue these topics. We can pursue them from different viewpoints, different ideals, different facts. But together we are growing, we are putting our process together through our studies. We are grateful for this. We are grateful for our spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the mentors of SGNY who are with us, guiding us and helping us along the way, inspiring us, even when the topics can be very challenging. They're there to give us a hand. We also give thanks to the healings that we have received through our studies as well. We know that we are learning on all levels. We are grateful to receive the love and light and inner peace that we have through Christ, through the Christ consciousness, through the love and the light. May we continue to be blessed as we study and continue to grow, as we continue with our mindfulness and with our empathy, with our compassion for others, and encouraging others to be helped along the way as we are as well. We close now and humbly ask for safety, protection as we go forth to family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. Those in our path, may they be blessed as well. We close and humbly ask to be beacons of light as we continue to go forth in peace. So be it.